So I saw that you volunteered at Trace Labs working on missing person cases. Can you share a little bit more about that experience?
Okay, Trees Lab is I think it's a non-profit organization of sort that is based in the US. So there's a thing called hashtag OSINT for good. So OSINT is for short for open source intelligence. So OSINT for good. It's meant for like online investigators want to be, stalkers want to be. I mean, stalker not in a bad way, but in a good way to like help to find missing people in the US, not primarily, but I know there are initiatives not just for the US, but for global. So what they do is that they work with the various police departments across the world, although mostly in the US and Canada, to find missing people. Yeah, so it's pretty cool to like just help out, practice some of the real life techniques and skills that I was like learning, and then helping to find missing people. At the same time, like just networking and I guess gaining actual experience in a real world setting rather than like just practicing in the online competition or like a quiz or like capture the flag, CTFS, as some people might be familiar with the term. Yeah.
Okay. What prompted you to volunteer for that cause?
I was in the military, so I was in the military intelligence, and that is the public sector, obviously. And I was looking to pivot out to the private sector. I think in my fourth year of my career, at the same time, I would just move into a new domain of intelligence, which is called open source intelligence, or for short OSINT, as I just mentioned. And I was like a senior military expert, so most people will be familiar with the term called officer. So officer is like you're like a junior management, a junior leader in the entire military setup, and more often than not, you're doing the planning, you're doing the directing, you're not doing the actual work that an individual contributor might do. So I felt like at that point, like everybody was new to this new domain of intelligence, open source intelligence. And I feel like if I don't know enough, I can't really lead my subordinates, my group of like specialists. And so I was looking to like upskill myself. I spent a bit of money on my own, investing in myself, and then like trying to learn more about doing the actual practical work. So with that, if you take courses, you take online courses, yeah, you can learn like the you can do some tests, you can take the certification, yeah, fine. But you don't have that real world experience. I can get some at work, yeah, sure, but I might not have the time to do that. So I want to do a bit more, and I think like I found this like initiative online. It's free to sign up, free to do. There are resources for you to like even learn as you go as well. So I thought that was a really good resource to like learn what the other professionals are doing. That's one. Number two is just doing something for good as well. So that was like the whole point of like why I want to do that. But besides like Trace Lab, there are other initiatives that people who are interested in this new thing they might want to try. So not just looking for missing people. So there's actually in Singapore there's this thing called Cyber Spotter with the Wildlife Federation WWF Singapore. So they're looking for volunteers if you're interested, or anybody else listening out there interested. They are looking to find illegal wildlife trafficking online. So sometimes you could be like illegal wildlife traffickers. They are looking to sell like say elephant tusk or like any leather made from like I don't know crocodiles or illegally poached animals. Essentially, you can help to spot these like as online on those online marketplaces. So there's also like a kind of like a open source intelligence work where like you're searching through like publicly available information, you're trying to help the world in some sense, and then yeah,
Did you feel the impact of your work?
that's the not so great thing. Sometimes you don't see the impact of the work, but you know you're contributing to something like better. But you know, like for example, the SR will be taken down. So when the SR taken down for say the wildlife trafficking, and then you know like yeah, you're disrupting the whole chain of wildlife trafficking. I mean, you're not disrupting it right at the beginning, but you're at least like disrupting that chain from like the seller to the buyer. So that's one thing like you're helping in some sense.
And I want to start from the beginning now that you're kind of going into it. What prompted your career insecurity?
I studied sports science, so a lot of people be quite surprised whenever they hear my story, or even when you go to my LinkedIn profile, people are like, what, you study sports science and management, and then you move on to like the SAF, and then now you're in the private sector. So literally I only have like a number of jobs, and the way I pivot is quite strange for some people. So it's literally like this. I studied sports science, so I majored in sports science. I wanted to be like specializing in football science, so I was really into like the whole idea of like, oh, I'll go overseas to like take some master of football science. I'll be supporting like some football club in like physio or like fitness training, that type of thing. But I realized that to do that, to get that additional studies, you need more money. And I wasn't from a like very wealthy, well-to-do family, and like I just have to like pay my own way through university, getting like bursaries, getting those financial grants. I'm not like most Singaporeans where like you can look to your parents, hey, do you have CPF monies to like sponsor my studies, or even for a start just lend me the money for my university? No, I took the whole 100% bank loan from OCBC and then like paid my way through. And then when I was thinking of like further studies, I was telling myself, well, I really want to gain financial independence, and I really want to get rid of this debt. It's not a lot of money if you compare it to like other countries, but it's still a sizable sum, right? And then I was thinking, okay, what is the next job that I can look forward to where I can like earn quite a bit of money, like I can have a stable, high enough income. And I knew, and also before that I was actually interning in Football Association of Singapore, and I know that number one, there's not many open full-time positions as one. Number two, I know that they're not paying that well as well, so I don't think I want to be in that industry. So knowing that there'll be very few opportunities, I also wouldn't earn like an immediate financial independence as well. So that's when I look across to like the women's seminar that SAF had, and then I just like went over looking at the various booths, and I know that I did not want to do any Chong Sua. I did not want to do any like combat stuff. Initially I was thinking, yeah, people would think like I'm really sporty, but like being sporty and holding and carrying combat gear and like fighting your way through is quite different from like just being sporty and being fit. Yeah, it's not a thing I want to do, I think. So I went to this booth. It says Army Intelligence and Military Intelligence. So I was like, okay, intelligence to me says like I need to research. That's what you watch on movies, right? When like say James Bond is running, he needs like intel from like the support person saying like, okay, you need to run left, you need to run right. So all those are like information passing on in a timely manner to James Bond, so that James Bond can like run left, run right, and avoid dangers essentially. So that's what I want to do. I want to be that person behind the keyboard, like a keyboard warrior. That's what I want to do, and also earn some decent money as well. So that's how I got into it. I knew I didn't want army intelligence because I know it's reconnaissance, basically the first one into the battlefield and the last one out, and hopefully you don't die. That's you don't. I mean, unlikely for us to go into war, but but that also means that when you're doing training, you're carrying a lot of combat gear, and that's not what I want. So military intelligence sounds like what I wanted to do, basically just research. But of course I don't know what it is really about. At the point in time, you only have like Wikipedia page to refer to, like, or other countries' military intelligence. You don't have as much information about what we do then versus like nowadays, where like I think like for the Digital and Intelligence Service (DIS), they are sharing a bit more when they're recruiting. Yeah, so that's how I got into security. That's how I got into like intelligence. And then after that, I guess 6 years on, I was thinking, hey, I want to move on to the private sector. I want to move on with my life. There are certain life goals that I want. I think like staying in the military wouldn't like help me achieve those life goals. And I feel like going to the private sector and going to a company where I can be more authentic and be myself. And also not just that, but really doing what I would prefer to do. Less management, more individual contributor type of work was what I really want to do. And so I thought like, yeah, private sector was a way to go. I wasn't actively looking, I was just trying to like invest in myself, upskilling myself, making sure that I can still contribute to SAF if I don't get out of SAF, or I can make myself more attractive to like potential recruiters from the private sector. So yeah, just knowing what I want, trying to understand what is needed out there, and also internally upskilling myself, investing some money into myself, make use of Skill Future, and also like some salary from SAF, and then upskill, find a job, secure that job, and then yeah, that's how I am.
And so, it sounds like you kind of stumbled into security just by like going into that booth, like you said, right? And then you've kind of built that career within the industry and trying to focus on upscaling yourself. I'm curious about how do you feel about this industry as a whole? Do you feel like if you were able to rewind time, would you have still gone into this industry? And if so, like what would you tell younger you?
I think I would still have, because I think my focus then was really about financial independence. And I know that going to the public sector, regardless whether it's like the SAF or the police or like any other public agencies, I think just moving into a public sector was the key thing. And I thought like at that point in time, if I think back, I was just thinking, hey, I want to do something like exciting. I want to make sure that my contributions are purposeful. I thought like police was a way to go as well. Just that I was thinking to myself, oh no, I do not want to work shift. That's number one. Number two is that I think my parents will not be keen. People always think like, oh, when you're working for the police, it's great. There's a lot of like grassroots contributions, but at the same time, there's also quite a bit of like real dangers waiting for you. I mean, you can just check out the news. Quite dangerous, no?
Yeah.
So it's
yeah.
really close to them, but I also knew that I wanted to do a bit more research. In university, I wasn't really like a very studious person. I wasn't like a great student, but at the same time, I know that I like research. I like really like diving into the subject matter, and then just like trying to make myself some sort of expert. So that's what I really like, and I like that idea when I was like joining SAF, because what they were selling, the koyot they were selling, was really about being a subject matter expert in whatever intelligence domain that you're doing. So it hits a few checklists. Number one, financial independence. Number two is like, oh yeah, I can like do more research. Number three, I just like the idea of like being able to contribute to something bigger than myself. So national security sounds like very sexy, right? So literally like during my interview I was like saying like, oh yeah, I want to be at the forefront of national security. And they were like, yes, that is military intelligence for you. Yeah, so I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll sign the papers. Yeah.
And did you feel that? Like, did you feel that kind of purposeful drive every day at work?
I wouldn't say every day at work. But like, yeah, I think like it was purposeful. Some things are a bit like, I guess like on hindsight, you might think it's like, wow, shit, it's so lame to do some of the work I did. But yeah, I think they are. Can't share too much, but like yeah, I think they are quite purposeful.
And then you mentioned that you pivoted into private, and I think one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on my podcast was because there's just not that much exposure, or not that much very few people know what security does, right? And it's a very integral part of big corporations. And we were having this conversation earlier, but I really love for you to summarize to someone who has never heard of security before. How would you describe what you do and what the purpose of security is?
I think at its core, so I'm from corporate security, not from cybersecurity. I think a lot of people, when I introduce myself, like what I do, people tend to like, oh, you're from cybersecurity. Is that what you're doing? I'll be like, no. I think a lot of people think cybersecurity immediately is because everything nowadays is about cybersecurity. On the job market, cybersecurity seems, or the IT or tech in general, sounds like the job that like people are moving into. So people just automatically assume that I'm going to cybersecurity. But it is part of security, just that it is looking at like cyber threat actors. When I say cyber threat actors, they are like hackers. They are like people who want to like hack into your organization, want to hack into your own, to your phone type of thing, if I put it in really, really plain terms. But corporate security, what I'm doing essentially is more of like, think protecting the company's revenue. So I'm not a revenue generating unit, but I'm the one helping to protect your revenue. So I'm making sure that I'm preventing the company from suffering from, like, say, reputational damage, giving insights and intelligence such that you do not suffer from like any operational risk, reducing them, sort of thing. So it could be like as simple as someone committing a fraud, newspaper heard about it, make a huge news article about your company having like this person committing a fraud, and then you just cause reputational damage, and then maybe your stock prices go way down, and then you lose your revenue. So what we're trying to do is really like protect your revenue as well. What I do specifically is really open source intelligence. Essentially, is producing intelligence, producing insights by collecting and analyzing publicly available information that's available on the web, for example, to the right decision makers. And at its core is to reduce uncertainty, and so that you as a decision maker can make the right decision at that point in time. Yeah. But primarily I do investigations. So I do a lot of like Googling.
Yeah.
I do a lot of Googling. I do a lot of like collecting of information from social media, looking up persons of interest, looking up companies. So it's quite interesting. Every case is a new case. It's a new episode on Netflix. So I really like it.
So while a lot of what you do on a day-to-day isn't cybersecurity, because cybersecurity has a very different definition, what you do on a day-to-day, a lot of it is involving the internet and the web, and you know, like scraping through data online. And so you do this on a professional level for a company, but what is something that most people don't understand about safety or security online for their own personal data?
I think when we were growing up, so I'm a millennial.
Thanks
When I was growing up, like internet was just a new thing. So actually, a lot of things are not digitized. So for example, like you don't have like Facebook, you don't have Instagram, you didn't have like Friendster, you didn't have like MySpace, for example. So a lot of things you have are kept on like paper, and you don't generally share them out. And even if you do, you share them to your close network of friends. So that's one thing. But now everything is digital. A lot of things, even like your public records about say even your company records. Let's say you open a new business, your company records are online now. It's on Accra in Singapore. A lot of the things that you share, you're not just sharing to your friends at a cafe, you're sharing online, you're sharing on TikTok, you're sharing on Facebook, you're sharing on Instagram, and people, either they overshare or they overshare unintentionally. And I feel like you just it's not just sharing about themselves, they are sharing about the people around them, the strangers. They also may be sharing about their kids, their family members. And I think everybody has a different threat perception. So a lot of people would think like, oh yeah, nobody's going to hack me. But sometimes I'll explain to them, hey, it's not about you being an attractive target. It's just that your information is online, your account details are online, or leaked previously, or you were quite careless about it, and then people could just take those information belonging to you and exploiting them. When I say exploiting them, it could be as simple as like your Netflix account that you purchased, the account, the credentials shared online, and people are logging in and using your account without you knowing. Sometimes you only realize after a while, where like say you realize that your recommendations algo is off. And then, hey, why is there a show that is in another language that I don't watch? It's on my to watch list or like watching list. It's only then you check your device and you realize someone has logged in from another IP address from another device and has been using your account. you might feel like it's nothing because there's no loss to you. Yeah, somebody's using an account, but there's no loss to you. But sometimes your account can be taken over. Sometimes your account can be, your identity can be impersonated, and your data, because they impersonate you, they can create a new account. They can be like using your credit cards to like purchase new things. I think these are small things. It can be very inconvenient, but imagine if you lose a big amount. There was once like my Netflix account was taken over when I was in Bali. 3 a.m. my Netflix account was taken over, and I was so anxious because like when your Netflix account is taken over, it's really hard to get it back. So I had to call the next day morning to Netflix to just to like terminate that account and transfer those details, my information, to a new email address. So essentially, I have to restart the whole Netflix account again. There was another time where like my credit card information was like leaked online in the dark web, I think, and then people was using my my money that I actually have in my bank, like actual money, was as well, to buy a crossbow in the US. I was like, what? So it's not just like simple inconvenience like you having to change your account, but it can be a financial loss as well. This is also just affecting you, but sometimes it can also affect the people around you. So like you see like say if you're oversharing, people can examine your account, see what are your habits, who are the people in your family. They can get to know your habits, your mannerism, how you speak to each other. Sometimes you can post like chat your group chats with your family, for example, and then people will know like, oh, this is how you store your parents. You store your parents' number as like mom, dad, for example, and then you see how people have an understanding of how you speak to each other. And it's quite common nowadays, isn't it? People, the fraudster or the scammer will pick up the phone. Oh, I should do this, not this. You should pick up the phone, and then they'll call you, and then they'll attempt something called social engineering. They'll pretend to be your mother, your father, your grandmother, whatever it is. They may even make use or leverage generative AI to like create a whole new background, impersonate the voice, such that like you turn over your money, and it can be a lot of money. You read people losing a lot of money, and I remember there was a newspaper article about a study in Singapore, like the age range of the victims in Singapore is actually people, I can't remember what's the age, but it's actually people like our age group in 20s, 30s who are getting scammed the most.
Really? Not the aunties and uncles in their 60s?
No.
And what are we getting scammed by?
It's romance scam.
Okay.
That's one. Or like quick win investment scams as well. And don't be surprised, they can always mix the two together as well. Yeah, so that's one thing. But the other things also can be just the internet safety of your kids as well. Of like, I don't have kids, but sometimes like parents may be oversharing about their own kids. They may be having a public account. Some people may want to do that because like they want to share about their kids growing up, the cute moments, and they know that these accounts are like, maybe they're just sharing with their own circle of friends, but at the same time they may be keeping them public account rather than private account. So you may have like perverted folks using these pictures as well, these pictures and videos, and then there are a lot of like folks out there who are into like child abuse content. So all these, it can be like used to create, using generative AI, for example. I'm just like speculating. They can be used to like create new child abuse content as well. So it's like, I feel like sometimes parents tend to overshare, and it's not just that, but not just parents, but I think like there's just so much content out there that's not good for the kids. And then if you don't put it enough like digital controls for your kids' devices, you're exposing them to a lot of this content. And sometimes you don't moderate. It's very hard to moderate, to be fair. And then you're just exposing them to stuff earlier than you intended. Yeah, so it's quite scary. And people are just oversharing. They're not changing the privacy setting on their respective devices or their platforms. They're oversharing to like they sometimes don't even know what they're signing up for, and then people are selling their data. Yeah, a lot of risk, a lot of like pros and cons to using digital internet services. I think like people are not aware, and if you're aware, that's when you can make like a more um, um, a better decision about what you want to do. But if you are not, then you're just blindly exposing yourself to all these dangers, potential dangers.
I think that's like hearing you say this feels like you're parroting a lot of what my mom says. So, but I mean, I guess, you and my mom have a point, right? Which is that the tools that are available today for being scammed or for using data is more multivariate than we can even imagine, like the average person can even imagine. And I think the generative AI hit home because while I was producing this podcast, there's a lot of AI tools out there that will mimic your voice. So you just need to submit, a certain number of voice memos, and then they'll just have that voice, or that they're able to generate that voice again to say anything you want, which seems very, as a podcaster, you're like, great, I can make intros, I can, if I mess up, I can regenerate something. But actually, the harms of that tool is much more nefarious than just like, oh, I'm lazy and I don't want to re-record. So like exactly to your point about someone creating a false phone call from like, I need money, I have medical bills, whatnot, and pretending to be you or pretending to be a loved one. I think, now that you're saying that most people who are getting scammed are millennials, initially I was surprised, but now that I think about it, I guess that isn't super surprising considering the fact that it was the millennials that have, or people our age who have grown up with the internet as this like free and constant space, that we see it as like an extension of physical space versus I think our parents' generation or older, the internet was very new. And so when it came about, it was like this device, this new concept that they were wrapping their head around versus we grew up in an era where this was just like another extension of ourselves, and we played games on it, we made friends on it, all of those things. And so I guess like as someone who's being like a bit, playing a little bit of a devil's advocate, hearing you say this, I'm like, I know all of this, right? Like there's no shortage of whether that's the government, the media, or your parents who say and parrot the same stuff, saying like, fix your privacy settings and all of that. So I guess my question to you is, why do you think people are kind of glossing over the importance of this, despite the fact that our people our age are the most likely to get scammed? There have been so many cases in the news, and yet everyone's kind of living life with this air around them where they're like, it didn't happen to me, I'm not that dumb.
Yeah. No, exactly what you just mentioned. That people just think that they're not dumb to fall for this kind of like scams. And I think like the I think one other reason is that Singapore is a very high trust society. You just leave your bag there, nobody's gonna steal it. Nobody's probably unlikely to scam me. I'm just a tiny little pebble in this ocean, for example. Nobody's gonna scam me. I'm not important. I'm not even rich, for example. And I think I'm smart enough. I'm a degree holder. Yeah. So they think they're not going to get scammed, but sometimes they do. Sometimes like you don't notice the signs until much later. And to be fair, it's not about you. Sometimes it's just not you. It's not a you problem, but because scammers are getting better at what they're doing. Scammers has more tools. They fail so many times because of all the smart people, right? And now they are refining how they like scamming you. And then if you're not up to date, for example, with the latest scam technique, then yeah, you might get scammed.
And so say, someone's listening to this and they're kind of just like, yes, I know this, just like I know I should floss every day. And, it's like all of this advice that you should follow. but they're still kind of hesitant about implementing any steps. So what are 3 easy steps that someone can implement right now to that will momentously help their security online?
Yeah, this is something that we do, even I do for at work as well. It's something called digital identity protection. It's about reducing your risk of like exposures to all these like creepy folks or like just bad folks who want to like exploit your data online. You can the simplest thing to do is number one, change all your passwords. Okay, use the password, not change all your password, use a password manager. When you use a password manager, naturally, I mean, I know it's paying a small, tiny sum of money, or you can just ask your partner or your family with a corporate account, hey, do you have a password manager? To actually, yeah, have a unique password for every single account. I know I'm like kind of exaggerating it. I personally have like 200 overs like unique password for all of my accounts.
Even as simple as like the Netflix or like a rewards program for a yogurt shop.
I mean, why it gives more convenience because I don't have to remember the password. That's one. Because I sometimes like even if you think you have like a unique combo to your password, say like, oh, because like this platform is Facebook, it starts with F, and then I'll start off with my password with F, and then like this common password that I always use, and then I'll end off with some symbol. A lot of people do that, I know, but it's such an easy way to like, if I just find out one of your password, I would know the rest of your passwords because like that's how you sequence it. So to me, it's really easy. Someone just want to like target you. So I feel like the easiest way is to change your passwords. That's number one. Number two is you have unused accounts that you do not use anymore. Like let's say you're from my era, you have a Friendster account, or you even have a MySpace account. Delete them. Go spend half an hour instead of scrolling through TikTok or Instagram. Spend a half an hour. Go to Friendster. Go to MySpace. Delete those accounts because it's always those unused accounts, those dormant accounts that actually have quite a bit of like personal information that you forgot that you actually posted. Is there? And sometimes people like to reuse certain things, like they like to reuse their usernames, they like to use the same username for every single account. It's easy for me to just track down like all your entire digital online presence and you just examine like what are your hobbies, what do you do on your weekends, what are the slang and lingos that you like to use and do, who are your friends that you follow the most across all your platform, and maybe these are the friends that I should like pretend to impersonate and scam you, for example. I think and number three is just like updating your privacy settings. Yeah.
So that every, for example, on Meta or on Instagram, it's friends only, private to.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Unless like, I don't know, you have like a professional presence that you want to make sure that it's public, or like you have like say podcasts that you want to make sure it's public. Then you want to like market them and advertise them. Then there is an intentional. That is the reason why you want it public. Yeah, like go ahead and do it. But I feel like if it's your personal life and you're sharing a lot of things that you want to share with your friends and you're not trying to monetize it, then maybe keep it private. If you're trying to monetize it, then yeah, sure, you can keep it public. But I also find that sometimes influencers overshares too much and then they're putting their family and their own self at risk sometimes. And we know for a fact that these things happen, like in South Korea, with stalkers cases, in like, I mean, not just South Korea, but like in every other countries where you have people who just do the bad things.
How do scammers identify who to scam? Because like you said, I think this too, where it's like, well, I'm not, someone of interest. I'm not a person of interest, right? You're looking at like the politicians or the megastars or whatnot. They have a lot of money and they have a lot of influence. So of course, go scam them. But, why waste your time on me? So I guess my question to you then is, who do these scammers target and why do they continue to target the small fries of the world?
Okay, I'm not the police. I'm not, I want to say I'm not the police. I'm not a scam fighter.
Oh, yes.
But what I feel is that based on my thinking is that I feel like they do a machine gun approach. I think, just. But because your information is just exposed, it's just right there. It's just like, I'll just take it. I probably would have like scraped everybody's information through some ways, and it just so happened that your information is just a row in my spreadsheet. I'm just going down the row, and because because it's just another row on my spreadsheet, I'm just going to like call and try, and I don't know, do whatever thing I want to do. Yeah, but because your information is already there, but if you do not put your information out there, if you keep it safe, your information is not there, it's more unlikely that you will not be a target of a scam. So sometimes, like for example, my phone number, I will receive like not scam, sometimes I just receive like unsolicited SMS. But it's because my phone number was just like my phone data was like sold to a data broker or like just leaked somewhere by another platform that didn't have really great cybersecurity measures. It's leaked online and then it's there. Yeah, I know my email and my phone number has been leaked like multiple times, because like platforms like MyFitnessPal, my Facebook, Twitter, they all have been like leaked before, and then my information just go with them. So I know I'm exposed to these stuff. Sometimes my credentials, my password will get leaked together. If I know I get leaked, let me change my passwords. Yeah, so so even like I think my most recent one was Marina Bay Sands.
The rewards program?
Yeah, it was leaked. So I know my password was leaked together. What I did immediately was go to my password manager, check that it was a unique password. If it was a unique password, yeah, great. Everything else is safe, but I just had to like log in and change my password.
How do you know if your password was leaked?
In most countries nowadays, as I know in Singapore you have as well, you have this certain regulation where like if there is a severe leak, within 10 days I think, or whatever defined days, you have to report and let your customers know that their account credentials have been leaked. Yeah, I think for severe ones, I'm not sure about the not so severe ones.
When you were saying the machine gun approach, I got chills as I was hearing you talk about it, because at the end of the day, to the person listening, to the person who thinks like I'm just one person, like what can I have to offer? It's actually true. You don't have much to offer maybe compared to these big targets, but you're just an easy target, and that's what makes you so attractive. It's really just like if you are being foolish and letting your data kind of spray all over, you're going to be targeted. Yeah. So I think that's a good thing to keep in mind. I think that was definitely my own wake-up call as well. I also want to bring back to one of the things that you did in your free time is that you designed a cybersecurity course for single mothers in Singapore. So I'm curious a little bit more about that experience. What did that course include, and what impact did you see that have?
I unfortunately I didn't stay around long enough to like see what the impact has. I spent quite a bit of time designing the course. So I think I was with this organization called Social Health Growth. I think primarily based in itself in the northeast region of Singapore. They want to do a lot more for the elderlies as well as the single parent families. So I think one of the key focus was on digital literacy for both the elderlies and also like of course not for a single parent but more for their kids as well. So that was their main focus. But I think what was great for this organization was that because they have a specific focus group that they have and in a specific locality, so they wanted to do that outreach to them. So that's why they're looking to creating like this program. So that's where I just kind of like dip into my own like domain knowledge and just try and craft this course for them. Yeah.
So you're the co-leader of an LGBTQ network at IBM in your current place of employment. Mm-hmm. So what inspires your work in the network? Yeah,
so joining IBM, so again, I just want to say that whatever I'm saying is just my own personal opinion. this is not approved or like sponsored by IBM, so I'm just going to say what I say as my own personal opinions. So IBM is my first job right after like SEF. So to me, like the work environment is two very different ones. So in SEF, I feel like I could be myself, but not my whole true self. So moving to IBM with a really welcoming, inclusive work environment was somewhere that I really liked. I mean, after all, I was still working at IBM Singapore, but most of the time, actually, my work is primarily remote. So most of my colleagues, in fact, they are not based in Singapore. They are based like elsewhere in the world. My current role is a global role, so I'm not fixed to a particular region. So like I'm not fixed to like AP region or Asia Pacific region, for example. So it opens up a bit more. So I feel like unlike working say in a Singapore SME where you only have like locals or say your whole teams are local, I feel like I'm a bit more, I don't know how to describe it. I feel a bit more safe, easy. People have a lot more, you are not kept to like working with people with just a specific life experience. You are working with people with a diverse experience, outlook, and I'm glad that my manager is also really like open, inclusive. So that really like kind of like helped me in a way that yeah, I know I'm in a safe and inclusive environment. I can just be myself. I can bring my 100% authentic self to work, and I don't have to apologize. But at the same time, of course, I know that I don't have to. My true self is not necessarily for work per se, but knowing that I can be myself, knowing that I can be happily talking about my partner and whatnot, is great. Because I feel like there's a lot of like diversity inclusion focus in the US and the Western countries, but it's not as much in the Southeast Asia context. There's also a reason why. There's also a reason why there are so few activities, I feel, in the IBM office. I think it's really because as Singaporeans, a lot of them just go to work and it's work. They don't really like, perhaps they don't really want to like hang out with their colleagues, or I don't know, it could be like a workplace culture, or it could be like a Singaporean culture thingy. But I feel like having like one or two activities would be nice, and therefore I joined to be a co-leader. Initially I was just a member by joining all the virtual calls, but I realized that yeah, I think I want something more to be done in the IBM Singapore office, and that's why I joined as a co-leader. Yeah.
How many of you are there in this IBM Singapore? Because when I was in the Credit Suisse LGBTQ network, there was like 4 of us that was in the core network, aka who was 5 actually who were actually queer, and then there were like 40 allies. It was ridiculous. But yeah, so you know, when you're saying how like there wasn't really representation, people were just not coming out at work at Credit Suisse, and obviously it's not their onus to come out, because you know our job is to make the space inclusive enough such that they feel comfortable to come out if they want to, rather than they have to come out and then make it inclusive for themselves. But that was definitely something that we found, was that we were kind of like 5 of us that are looking all at each other, we're like, we want this to be more inclusive. We think that there are probably more queer people in our pretty large office, but we're not sure. So I'm curious, like, how many people are in this network, and is there any like key issue that you're trying to tackle right now?
Okay, so I started from like 0, so initially it was just me.
So you were a member and you were the only.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I was the only member. I was the only one when I first joined the employee resource group, or we call it business resource group, like BRG, a bit different in IBM. If I just do a search Singapore, I'm literally the only one based in Singapore. So that's why I wanted to like focus a bit more on the Singapore context, because I feel like maybe people are not joining because a lot of like the resources, the calls are not scheduled in a very Singapore friendly call. So for example, maybe if you're based in the Philippines, or you're based in, I don't know, other countries in ASEAN, for example, maybe the bulk of the workforce, they are making maybe working shifts rather than like a usual 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 hours in Singapore. So maybe the hours are not suitable for the Singapore context. Maybe the content that we're talking about, even if I join in, it might not resonate with the Singaporeans or like the expat folks who are working in Singapore. It's just maybe just a different type of resource that they're looking for. So that's why I want to do that. And then from a zero kind of like membership, I would say maybe now it's like 12, 15.
Wow, congrats.
But they are not active. They are not all of them are super active. But I'm really glad that they actually joined the business resource group. There are some allies, but they are not in the group. If I just call out for like, hey, I need help, there will be a number of people coming and say, hey, I'm happy to help, kind of thing. Like people are like open to helping. People are open to like coming for activity, but asking them to like join into the business resource group is a bit harder. But I think the great thing about IBM is that it is part of like if you do some of these things, even though it's like a gig, like a volunteer kind of stuff, you can just put it into your performance review kind of like goal setting. It's counted into your performance review. So I think like that's great about IBM is that they take into account all these things as well.
That's awesome, because I had a conversation with Andrew, who is a D&I consultant, and he said that one of the reasons why D&I gets a bad rep and a lot of D&I trainings don't work is because companies just want to do it so they can say that they're inclusive, and they just want to slap on that label. And one of the things that he said that he wanted more companies to do was include D&I initiatives or practices in their KPIs. Because sure, you can get 30 employees in a room and walk them through a bunch of slides, and then they walk out and all of them are like, okay, we're all inclusive now. Or you can tell them, hey, whatever you learn in this presentation, start implementing 1 or 2 initiatives in your day-to-day, and that will come up in your performance review. Whether that is, he was saying very simple things like using they, them pronouns as a way of addressing someone if you don't know their pronouns, or just knowing everyone's names and like knowing how to pronounce everyone's names, right? Because sometimes people don't even take that courtesy, and even knowing someone's name can be seen as quite inclusive when you're able to address them by name and also say their name correctly. And so I love that. I think that's awesome that IBM is doing that.
Great, but I feel like it can also backfire to a certain extent. I don't know. I have been like looking at comments on Reddit, on like, I don't know, I just been like, sometimes when I'm bored, I can't sleep, I'll just be on Reddit, I'll be on Instagram, I'll just be looking through comments. And what I realize is that that can backfire because people will be like, oh, if I don't do this, even if I don't agree with it, and it doesn't align with my own personal value, because I'm not doing that, I'm being what's the word?
Penalized?
Yeah, I'm being penalized for not doing that. They miss out on something. They miss out on their performance review, and it just kind of like creates a vicious cycle. I feel like they just become like even less into D&I. Yeah,
that's tough, because on one hand you can say, well, if you truly believe that your values are, let's say, more extreme example, transphobic, or not LGBTQ friendly, so homophobic or racist, then you shouldn't be working at a company like ours, right? So that's like from maybe the management's perspective. But I can understand that D&I is not black and white, and that just because you may not agree with a principle, and it doesn't even need to be a malicious principle, right? It could just be like, oh, we think that you should use they, them pronouns for everyone. I think pronouns is always a contentious issue. And someone can be like, well, I'm very uncomfortable with this. I don't want to use this they, them pronoun or something. Then that can be very hard, and that can ostracize folks and make them all the more likely to join companies that, then you start creating like enclaves, right? Where certain companies start really parading that they are conservative, that they are right, and that they will have their whole value system aligned with that to attract that kind of talent. That is tough. Thank you for your time. But yeah, we can just kind of, I want to ask you about congrats on getting married.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
I'm I'm just feeling I'm happy that the wedding's going to happen because we feel that this celebration is a lot more important than like I mean I really want to sign that legal papers, but we think like the wedding celebration is more important than the legal paper signing because like this is where you see our friends and family, especially our family, coming together to like kind of like endorse and support our coming together, our union. So really excited to do it in Australia, in Melbourne. Also really excited about the day, but I'm not super excited about the whole process of planning. Just brings me a lot of anxiety. We have a really good planner um, who's based in Melbourne. She's great, but at the same time, like you just can't help, you know, because I just my mom was like, oh my god, this is another project I need to manage beyond the projects I have at work, and then I need to do everything on a spreadsheet on Excel. I don't have like tools like from work where I can just like kind of automate like the task and then like, complete and then you just go to automate completed like dashboard. There's nothing like that. I need to do everything like manual, and then I get anxious just because just want to check off like make all my items from like red to like green. I just want it to happen in an instant and I just can't. So yeah, just yeah, I think that's also a me problem. Yeah, it's me high.